went through that hype cycle that you've seen where everyone gets really excited and they all get on the bandwagon. It doesn't do what they hoped it would, and they all lose interest.
Yeah.
And then it slowly creeps back and becomes a boring, normal part of society.
Correct.
And this happened multiple times in AI. And the newest thing we're excited about are these transformers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to one more episode of Unlocking the AI Advantage podcast. This is your host, Ramesh Danta. I hope you've been enjoying the previous episodes. And today I'm pretty excited to talk about a topic that has garnered a lot of attention in the AI industry. Whether you are a user of AI, whether you are new to AI, I'm sure you heard about this topic. Okay. This is called generative AI. So today's episode, I would like to actually call it the practical guide to the generative AI. And for some of you, if I just say generative AI, you may not know what I'm talking about. But if I say ChatGPT, I'm sure you will know what it is. Now, ChatGPT is a tool based in this class of tools called generative AI, which has taken by storm. Hundreds of millions of people all around the world have been exposed to generative AI through this tool called ChatGPT. All right. So today's episode, I'm going to talk about a few things. Number one, what is generative AI? Number two, why should we care about generative AI and where is it going to help us? What are the use cases? Number three, a brief introduction to how generative AI actually works. We will not go into too many technical details, but just a quick overview of how generative AI works. All right. And then we will actually talk to a guest who can give us a perspective about generative AI, why it has taken off, and how he's using it in his company. And also he's also in academia as well. So what's happening there as well. So with that, so let's get started. All right. So what is generative AI and why is it called generative AI? So as the name suggests, right? So generative AI is about generating new and fresh content, okay, using AI. It's a subset of AI. So what content are we talking about? This could be text content. It could be videos. It could be images. It could even be a programming code, okay? So for example, you want to write a blog article. Okay, so this generative AI tools, whatever tool we're talking about, have been trained using the previous data, like lots of blog articles, and then models, some algorithms that we used, right? Using that experience, the machines learn, and then it can create a blog article for you on any topic. Okay, similarly, you can create images. You can even actually create new videos. There are generative AI tools out there that you can give it a script and then it creates a video for you, right? It takes all the other videos that it has in its database, and then actually it can innovate on whatever data that it has. So it's just not regurgitating whatever it has in the database, but it's actually innovating, creating new and fresh content. So at a high level and a non-technical explanation, that's what generative AI is, right? It is actually machines, computers, using the past data, right? And then running some algorithms, creating fresh new content by innovating on the whatever the data that has learned on, but it also keeps learning. Okay, so why is it taken off? So in November 2022, ChatGPT from a company called OpenAI was unveiled. And suddenly people, the content creators, for example, right, marketing agencies, they could access AI that they did not have access to AI. Previously, only large companies have been using AI or implementing AI for prediction, prescriptive, for data analytics basis, but it was not accessible to you and me, like so people on the street, right? So to say. So ChatGPT suddenly opened the doors how they can use AI in their daily lives, right? You can create blogs. You can actually you could students have been using it to solve problems. Actually, there were examples of where a ChatGPT you may have seen has done some advanced examinations in the past, right? So medical examinations, so lawyer examinations. So it is taken off by storm. Okay, so now let's talk about how generative AI actually works. Okay, so the way it works is using some, so for example, some of the models. Okay, so it goes into a little bit of a technical side, but I will not go too deep here, right? So they use generative adversarial networks where there's a generator and then there's a discriminator, which is the opposite side of creating the content. So the discriminator is it's actually differentiates between real and generated data. So whereas the generator actually comes up with the real data, right? So by generated and adversarial models, the generator gets better in creating a better quality content, as an example. And then they also use other models called variational autoencoders, right? As I said, I don't want to go too deep into it, but some of the advanced models that are out there are used in generative AI. Okay. And then they also use something called a recurrent neural networks. So neural networks is another piece of the AI, component of the AI that is taken off as well. It's always been there, but they are used much more more recently in the generative AI space. Okay, so and then why it has taken off, the usage has taken off. At the same time, the models themselves have become advanced, and they had access to trillions of parameters of data, and as a result, the ChatGPT kind of tools are able to be put together. Okay, so it is just the usage along with the advances in the storage and in the computing side of the world also made generative AI possible. Okay, so what are some of the use cases? Like where it can be used? It can be used for text generation. It can be used for image generation. It could be used for video generation, music generation, and also synthesizing data as well, right? And then so it can create fresh content for you. And more recently, some of the tools, they can not only create text, but they can actually see and hear as well, right? So you could actually upload a homework as an example, okay, as an image, and then these tools, advanced tools, can read what's on the page in homework and solve it for you, which is kind of scary. Okay, so these advances are happening all over the place. So now the question is, what are some of the tools so that you and I can use? Okay, so let me just go through some of the popular tools, about 10 or so. And in the a practical guide to generative AI, we are also coming up with a document or a guide to go along with this podcast. So we will mention all these tools there as well. Okay, so some of the tools, ChatGPT, as I already mentioned, is from a company called OpenAI, and the free version is available. It can see, hear, as well as read. So it can generate content. So it can create text content. It can see images that you upload, and then it can also hear from the audio files as well. So it's one of the tools that is got head start over other tools. Okay. So and then the other one is a GitHub Copilot. So this is for programming side. So Copilot is also helping programmers write code faster, higher quality code. So on the programming side, Copilot and these kinds of tools can definitely enhance the productivity of the programs. And the other tools that are there, Scribe, it's an AI writing assistant. Okay, so it's given a prompt, it can write entire blog article for you. So even whether you use that article or not, you can at least get you started. And the other one is Alpha Code, just like a Copilot. It also helps with programming side. And Mid Journey is another one that you might have heard. This is on the image generation side. Pictory is another one. So they are on the image generation side. And Synthesia is for video generation. So another popular tool that's used for video generation is Synthesia. And because ChatGPT came from OpenAI, all the big guys like Google also have come out with their own versions. Bard, B-A-R-D, is another tool like ChatGPT, like tool that it's a chatbot, it's a content generator, so that Google unveiled that one. DALL-E, D-A-L-L-E, is the one that from OpenAI again. That's for images, okay? And then Cohere Generate, right? So this is another one. It empowers the developers to, craft dynamic dialogue systems, okay? So Cohere Generate is another popular tool out there. DALL-E has come up, as I mentioned. It's a more advanced versions of DALL-E 2 is there, right? So another one is a Claude, C-L-A-U-D-E is another popular tool, which is like ChatGPT, and some people prefer Claude. So these are some of the popular tools, and we ourselves use extensively some of these tools. Another tool that I should mention is Capwing, K-A-P-W-I-N-G, that we use for the videos. So let me just now, this section, I want to talk about what tools we use, how we use them. So we definitely use ChatGPT. We also use Claude for text generation and blog articles, getting some ideas. We experimented with Synthesia. We are using Capwing extensively for video editing and some of the videos that we put out there. Okay, and we've been using DALL-E 2 and then Mid Journey extensively for our images as well. So those are some of the popular tools. And on the programming side, we are experimenting with the Copilot. We are experimenting with the auto code that I mentioned as well. So these are the ones we'll be making more tutorials on all the tools and how we use them. All right. So without further ado, now I would like to take you to my conversation with an expert in this space, okay, in the generative AI space. And then later on, I'll come back and wrap up this episode. All right. So this is the episode about the practical guide to generative AI. Now let's listen to my conversation with an expert. So Graham Morehead is an adjunct professor at Gonzaga University and is teaching AI and ML. And his lab Pandion actually is working on unique models and is launching 2 startups, right? Real estate predictions and natural language and understanding. As you can see, he transcends both the learning and teaching aspect of AI, so in the real time, working on those things, but at the same time applying those concepts along with the students in the lab to bring those concepts into real life on the real estate side, and as well as the natural language understanding, which is unlike what you have seen in the ChatGPT as an example. So we'll get into all those aspects. So with that, Graham, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here today.
Go ahead, please introduce yourself.
So I started out as a physicist, but then in my last semester, this is back in the 90s, I took a course on AI and I realized this is way more interesting. It felt like sci-fi. I mean, can this be a real job? And it turns out it can, and it is. So as soon as I finished my physics degree, I'm like, I'm never doing physics again. And I tried to start working in AI. It took a couple of years before I got my first job in AI. And back then, speech recognition counted as AI. And that's what I started out with in 97. And I never looked back. And I've been in so many different companies and startups ever since then.
Excellent. So thank you very much, Graham, for being here today. And then as we all know, what generative AI has done in the last I would say 4 months. November 30, I believe, around that time frame, OpenAI introduced this ChatGPT, And then by end of January or sometime in February, 100 million users, right? And then it's since then, of course, Google and Microsoft and everybody has adopted their own versions of it. And then the companies like Midjourney. So let's lay the land out there because we are calling it today as a guide to generative AI, right? AI is not new. It's been there forever. It has gone through multiple winters of AI. We know that, right? So this is after 2 winters, and now it's the resurgence of AI has come recently. So the question to you on that note is, what are the things that led to this revolution of the generative AI that just opened the doors? So like it's almost like the floods that are coming our way.
When I think about the winters of the past, remember someone invented the neural network in the late 50s.
Yeah.
And we thought it's going to be 20 years before we have something that can rival a human. That's what they actually thought. Some people actually thought that back then. And of course, it didn't happen. So we went through that hype cycle that you've seen, where everyone gets really excited and they all get on the bandwagon. It doesn't do what they hoped it would, and they all lose interest. Yeah. And then it slowly creeps back and becomes a boring, normal part of society.
Correct.
And this happened multiple times in AI. And the newest thing we're excited about are these transformers. What I believe is going to happen is we're going to get to the point where we realize they don't do what we hoped they did. So we're going to lose some of that enthusiasm. But the cycles are so much quicker now that the next thing will probably be ready before we lose our hype about it. Now, why now? Out of all this time, what led to this? And I think there's a whole lot of smart people in this field. There's thousands of smart people, and they're just trying things. One thing I remember when I was in college and we were being taught differential equations, there was no rhyme or reason as to why this was tried or that was tried. It was like they just had a bag of tricks, bag of tools, and many smart people, spent their whole careers and didn't give us anything while others did. And there's kind of luck. And when we think about the different models that worked and the ones that didn't, there's luck there. The fact that we have thousands of really smart people trying things is what led to this. Some of them worked and some of them went viral, but I was so surprised that this went as viral as it did. Exactly. I've never seen anything
like that
remotely.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the curves that show the adoption of different technologies, and this is unlike anything that we have seen in the past. I have my own, hypothesis about what led to, the success. I believe previously, for example, 2019-20, I was working on a consulting engagement where we were trying to solve, the AI for high performance computing, right? So business problems. So it's about that. But suddenly, I think that my belief is that we have shown, the AI has shown that it can solve problems that the regular people can have, whether it's writing a blog article or creating an image that I can use. So those kinds of use cases, scenarios are made possible in a very realistic, as a human-like way, and then that led to the success. I mean, what's your comment on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a human way. The chat interface was something everybody was familiar with. They knew how to interact with it. And the fact that something interesting came back made it so compelling. Yeah. A number of years ago, there's something called Cleverbot that tried to do the same thing. And what it did is it was just chat interface. You could chat with this AI, and every time you responded to something, it learned from you. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't as sophisticated. So after a while, it got boring because you started to realize very quickly it doesn't actually understand. The thing that's so compelling about this is that it gives responses that tricks the mind and makes you think it understands. That is so compelling.
Excellent. I agree with that, right? So with that out of the way, so there are many players out here, right? So we heard of OpenAI, right? Sam Altman and all those, right? So, but it's not that OpenAI is the only thing that's out there, right? So there are lots of players. If you could lay out for the audience, who are the key players in the generative AI space that we should watch out for?
I think we need to bring in the visual now. So there is something called the diffusion model that came out a while ago.
Yep.
And that started out just trying to remove noise. Stable Diffusion and OpenAI seem to be the leaders. Google probably has better technology, but has been holding back. They have a reputation to uphold. Microsoft is now, deep in with OpenAI, so you can assume they have access to everything they have. And everybody who's been doing LLMs, large language models in general, and transformers, they can all be players. Amazon, Facebook, they're all going to be huge in this, but there's many small guys who are going to be influential too. Open Assistant, which came from Yannick Kilcher in his group. That's going to be influential too.
Yeah. So one thing that I've noted along those lines, there could be domain-specific large language models. For example, what I have seen is that Bloomberg came out with its own LLM, right?
Yep.
So basically a generative AI solution based on LLM for the financial data, right? So we probably will see those kinds of things happening in healthcare because there's a lot of healthcare data on Google Health. They have that cloud, right? So I could see a pharmaceutical company or healthcare company with so much data, right? Either partnering together for drug discovery and then or even treatment kind of things. I mean, do you see the domain-specific LLMs playing a large role, or it's going to be very
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, the big companies are going to stick to the general case.
Okay.
OpenAI is never going to make one that's tuned for one small vertical. That's why there's plenty of space for all these, smaller companies, such as LocksZ that I'm a part of, where we have generative AI being tuned just for marketing emails.
On the same note, Graham, I think nowadays we cannot have a discussion about AI without talking about impact on jobs, right? So when the cars came, horse carriages went out. So it didn't end the world, but a new, economy has developed, right? In terms of what. So now I see like a prompt engineer is a job, right? So this is where the linguists are coming back into, so who can come up with a better prompt, good prompt, can get better answers from ChatGPT or any of those generative AI kind of things. So on that note, so there will be impact on jobs. So what is your take on the jobs and then how we should adopt ourselves for this new AI economy?
The whole prompt engineering thing is going to be a thing for a while. And this is because LLMs are touchy. If you say something exactly right, they'll do the right thing. If you say it just a little bit wrong, it does the wrong thing. Think about it as working with a very temperamental coworker who every time you insult them a tiny bit, they go off the handle.
I love your examples, Graham. So I think I can really relate to all those things.
Awesome. So what we're going to get to, though, is something that understands a little better. So we're all going to be able to be a part of the AI community instead of just having to be a coder. So what this does, this bridges the gap between AI and non-coders. So we can use natural language and it will start to understand us. This means that if you want to design, a new house, if you're an architect, you can talk about it and that will give you, 80, 90% of the way there. And then you tweak the actual, the CAD CAM designs. If you're someone working in public policy, you can tell an AI to generate a document as a rough draft and it will generate a policy rough draft. And then, it gets you 90% of the way there. So this is how it's going to be for many, many jobs, many white collar jobs, and then eventually some blue collar jobs. And you're going to talk to an AI that's pretty smart. It's like having an idiot savant sitting next to you. They're going to do 90% of the work, and then you still have to do the last tweak. Like right now, although a truck can drive autonomously across the country, when it's backing into an alleyway in New York City, a human has to drive. And it's a little bit like that played across all professions.
Actually, I can relate to that one, right? So from a programming perspective, coding, we know that generative AI is helping programmers. But can it completely write an application? For example, I could get the code out, like I can get Python code. But again, stitching these together to make an application, still, I will not be able to do it, right? So, I mean, those kinds of things. So it can fast forward. If I'm a programmer, it can provide me the basic, the scaffolding, initial stuff that I don't have to do it. And then, but on top of it, but I still need to make, whether you call it 10% or whatever that is, to make the final thing happen. So it cannot completely replace and make it, autonomous. You still need us, so we can become more smarter in how we work with AI. That's what you're saying.
Yes, there is a coming productivity explosion because 90% of the work that we do now can be done by an AI, but humans are still needed. And the good news here is that if you don't know how to code, all you need to do is be able to speak your language.
Thank you very much, Graham. So it was very, very insightful discussion. Honestly, the way you laid out the intro itself is very, very fascinating, and that is extremely valuable. Folks, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Graham Morehead. As I mentioned, he is in the academia world, along with the corporate world. He's got startups as well. And so he can give us a better idea of how generative AI is being used, both on the academic side as well, what's the research that's going on, as well as how it's being in the corporate world. Okay. And as I mentioned, along with this episode, we're putting together a practical guide to generative AI. It's something that you can download. And to get this guide, please subscribe to the AIentrepreneurs.com newsletter. So it's the AIentrepreneurs.com. Go there and then you can subscribe to the newsletter. And once you subscribe to the newsletter, you will get the guide, a practical guide to generative AI and what's happening in the generative AI space. Okay. So with that, so thank you for your support. And so I will see you in the next episode.